Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Real Talk About Feminism. We're so excited you're here.
Welcome back to the last week of January. Guys, we've made it through almost the first month of the new year. Hopefully your resolutions are still going strong.
You didn't give up yet.
And
We're hoping.
if you did, that's okay. We can start over again. We're excited to be back with you guys. We've got a good episode planned. Actually, it's really fun and interesting. So, we're going to be talking about what would it be like if women ruled the world.
Yes.
So,
We can dream.
yes. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. First we're gonna do our obsessions as always.
My obsession is this one classical song that I heard on TikTok, and it's called Where Is My Mind by Maxence Siren.
Okay.
But it's really good, and I spent a long time trying to find it on Spotify from TikTok.
Okay.
But it makes me feel alive.
Okay.
So I love that song.
Well, I'll have to listen to it. It's not on Spotify?
No, it is on Spotify.
Oh.
But I had to I didn't know the name of it. And so I just looked up classical TikTok songs
Oh, wow.
and it
Okay.
came up. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I'll have to listen to it. Everyone give it a listen. My obsession this week is manifesting. Because I've been doing a ton of research on it, especially before we went into the new year, I was doing a ton of research on it, and I just feel like it's helping me overall be way more positive because in my mind I'm already thinking these things are happening,
Right.
and so I'm just obsessed with it. Obviously, I've got a lot to learn, but I just really wanted to go into the new year with positivity and knowing I'm gonna reach the goals that I have set, and I feel like writing them down and using different manifestation techniques actually have helped that positivity.
I'm obsessed with that too. And something that I learned from the Hollywood podcast is to have a future journal.
Hmm.
And so I've been doing that. You
Really?
literally write okay, this day in a year.
Yeah.
Today I did this and I booked tickets for this trip. You act like it's you in the future
Hmm.
and these things are happening to you.
Yeah. No, I loved that episode. It was so good because it was really an interesting concept. And then when I was doing all this research on manifestation, that came up, and it was at the beginning of the year, and you could still do it now. Because I don't think it's not like your manifestation knows it's the beginning of the year.
Mm.
So you can still do it now, but it was write literally a plan of how the next 12 months are gonna go, and write out as you're writing out a biography of what happened, and then every day you journal. So you print off that whole little document that you make of how your past year went. You're manifesting for the future, and then you print it out, keep it somewhere important that you might look at it a few times a year, but you're not going to always be constantly looking at it. You'll forget about it and then be oh, I'm getting I would put mine in my document folder thing, so if I needed to get my passport or something randomly, I'd be oh, there's that again, and just remember. But then along with that, you're supposed to do your future journals every day and write what happens in the future life, and it's supposed to
It's
really
such
help.
a cool concept. I'm excited to look forward in a year and be did this actually happen? Is this where I'm at right now?
Yeah.
But it's cool. I think the written word is really powerful for
Mhm.
manifestation.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, if it's not too late to do your vision board for the year or do all of that, it isn't too late. Go ahead and
Mm-mm.
get all your goals out there because writing them down is the most powerful.
Yeah, we did that for the podcast and
Mhm.
personally.
Yeah,
That was fun.
it was fun.
It was fun to look back and be we literally crushed
Yes.
all of our goals.
Yeah, literally, it was so fun. And so
Mhm.
now, knowing that we reached all our goals last year, I know we're gonna reach them this year, and they're even bigger goals, so it's
Mhm.
exciting.
For sure.
Okay, let's get into feminist highlight.
Feminist highlight time. Today, we're highlighting Beatrice Finn. She's the executive director of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, and it's shortened to ICAN, is the abbreviation. ICAN won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017. Beatrice Finn has over a decade of experience in disarmament diplomacy and civil society mobilization. Through her work with ICAN, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and the Geneva Center for Security Policy. She has written extensively on weapons law, humanitarian law, civil society engagement in diplomacy, and multilateral institutions and gender perspective on disarmament work.
Hmm.
She has a master's in law from the University of London and a bachelor's degree in international relations from Stockholm University.
Wow, she's an educated
Very
queen.
educated and is doing some really great work in the world.
Awesome. Well, that is really cool. Thank you for sharing. If you guys ever have any feminist highlight ideas, then just go ahead and DM us and we will highlight them in an episode.
Yes.
All right. So, like I said, today we are talking about what would happen if women ruled the world. The reason why we're talking about this, it's kind of funny, like how it got brought up, but we were at, I don't even know how it
Yeah, I
started.
don't remember this.
We were at, I don't know, I keep forgetting the place. I always call it Jimmy Dean's.
Jason's
Jason's
Deli.
Deli. Okay. So we were at Jason's Deli with our family and like all of the siblings we were talking and we like randomly started talking about like Sadie, I think she said like, "Oh, if I ruled the world, then all men would have to live underground."
Oh,
So then we just elaborated off that and we were all just adding to it. And it was just funny. Like obviously that's not realistic and also not safe and whatever. But it's just
not
funny.
very feminist of
Yeah,
us.
not very feminist of us. So it made us it made me think like, okay, like is there like what would actually happen? And so it turns out the Guardian, they did like a little like interview series. They just asked women like that question. And so there was a ton of different answers. And so I like we're just going to be like reading the answers and like these people like they're all from different backgrounds. The question that they asked them was how would women change the world? With the context of like what would happen if like it was only women in charge. And so they asked like artists, comedians, writers, politicians, actors, like just like a bunch of random women. And these were all their answers and I thought that they were really interesting. So we're just going to be like taking turns reading their answers back and forth and then just kind of like discussing. Um but first, if you were in charge of the whole world, what would you do?
In charge of the whole world?
Yes, like what would your first thing do? Or what what would the first thing you would do? I
Oh
can't
my
talk.
gosh, I feel very on the spot.
What is the first thing you would do if you were in charge?
What's the first thing I would do? You know what? The first thing I would do, selfishly of me, I would hop on my private plane and I would
Oh.
go to every single country and visit everybody there.
Oh. Okay. We have a selfish queen. I was thinking I would like make sure that every woman has an unlimited supply of tampons and pads and menstrual
Well, that would
products.
be part of it.
But I'm saying like your policy as a woman in charge.
Oh,
So obviously we don't want to put you in charge.
okay.
Um
I don't want to be in charge.
But, like, what is something that you would do? Like, first thing policy-wise?
I there's so much I could focus on. First thing, I would somehow have something every woman could fill out that would say like, do you need shelter? Do you need food? Do you need to be out of a toxic relationship? That kind of stuff.
Hmm, awesome.
I don't know what I would do with that, but I would find safety for women.
Okay. Well, that's good. I love that. Okay, let's get into what people are actually saying.
Okay.
Um, and there's, like, a bunch of different perspectives. It's not all, like, the world would be amazing. Like, there's a
Mhm.
lot of perspectives in here. So we're just gonna take turns reading and then kind of discussing it, and you guys think about what you would do or how you think the world would be if it was all women in charge.
If anyone wants to hop on my private plane, join me.
Go for it.
Oh, there'd be less violence, we'd get things done quicker, and we would solve a lot of problems by chatting instead of bombing. We would think rationally. There would be fewer people dying if women were in charge. It's a fact. Men kill more people than women. Can't say I don't agree.
Yeah. I thought that one was interesting because I feel like men are a lot quicker to like be more aggressive and um women think like more emotionally. So like before like she said like we would solve problems by chatting instead of bombing. It's a bit drastic, but I think like women would be more like okay, let's think about this in a different way versus just going straight to violence.
Mhm.
But I thought that was an interesting perspective she had. All right, the next person, a little bit longer, but it was really good, so I wanted to include her whole thing. So she said, if you run in feminist circles, you're bound to have heard someone declare, Wouldn't the world just be better if more women were in charge? What runs through my mind when I hear this is which women? Are we talking about black women, disabled women, trans women? Are we thinking about the women who lie on the margins and the intersections of the feminist movement? Or do we just expect them to continue to have little to no power? The inevitable reality is that the women most likely to have power in a female run world will be white, middle class, cis, able bodied, and heterosexual. Power structures and other forms of oppression will not cease to exist simply because a woman is in charge. History will remind us of the ways in which white women have exploited and benefited from the oppression of their non white female counterparts. Taking a closer look at so called feminist victories, such as the birth of the contraceptive pill or the suffrage movement, will reveal pandemic racism, classism, and other forms of subjunction and,
Subjugation.
sorry, subjugation and oppression. We need to do away with romanticizing matriarchal power and dominance and instead question the ways we can change the problematic, dangerous power structures that operate within society today.
I really liked that. She had a lot of things to say about the way our society is set up and same elements of current systems we have in our world today.
Mhm.
And I think it's really interesting that she said, well, what would really change?
Mhm.
Because in our minds, we're like, everything would change if women were in charge.
Mhm.
But would it?
I think that things would change for
Things would
sure.
definitely change, but there would still be elements of racism and classism, just as she said,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, no, I thought that I liked hers because I thought it was like a very realistic take. And it is true and it does bring up like we talked about in our what feminism means to us, like that we are not white feminists and it, like we try and like be super inclusive, but the reality is like there is racism, there is classism, there's like a lot going on in the world still, and I think that definitely things would change, but you're right, like there would still be elements that wouldn't change, so we need to focus on how we can change those now,
Hmm.
like male versus female, like it doesn't matter, we there's other things that we have got to focus on as well.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting.
Next. The peace movement is the place to find powerful women, but they're not interested in power over others. Instead, they are empowering, inspiring by example, breaking down barriers to thinking, and taking action. They're uncompromising, but in a good way.
I liked that one, and um, I'm putting the link in the show notes so you guys can go back and read because I didn't take all of them, and I didn't take all the words that everyone said. Like I took clips, but in this one, she was talking about like um women that she has seen as leaders in the world and how they've been examples to her and how they did these things and like they inspired by example and by actually taking action and standing strong and not compromising their beliefs. And she called out like specific people that really inspired her to get to where she is today. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think like that is one benefit. Like if women were in charge, like it would actually be easier to see a world like where there's more equality because we're actually seeing women leading and it's
Hmm.
not just like men leading everything.
Hmm.
So that would obviously be one change.
And it kind of goes back to the first one of like peace over violence, how like
Mhm.
a lot can get done with
Mhm.
peace.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next woman, she said, I don't think anything would change if women had the power. For me, this comes from the idea that men and women are very alike and very equal. I don't think the notion of empathy or being nice depends on gender at all. Because if you consider women to be so much nicer, in a way that's to say they're like nice little animals that can't get angry, and that anger is something from men. I don't think women write differently from men or make movies differently. When it comes to physical effort, there is a difference. But when it comes to intellect, people with the same experiences and same sensitivities end up being the same kind of people, regardless of gender. Another interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the end, like regardless of gender, same kind of people. Yeah, that one for
She
me
also,
doesn't speak to me as much.
and that's okay, but I think that one was interesting because she touched on like the anger aspect, which we talked about in our like Kanye mental health episode. Um, because she's saying like, oh, it's like putting in the idea that like women are just like dainty little creatures and if they get angry like that's a man's thing. And that's not true and it's not realistic. So that's why I thought that was interesting because like there is still gonna be like you know, like being like women being leaders, like they're still going to be rising up and standing their ground. And I think that that would still be looked at as negative because we society doesn't allow women to like fully be that way. So I that's why I liked what she said, because I think it
Mhm.
brings up the good point of like there would obviously still be discrimination against women because they're doing something that supposedly only men are supposed to be doing.
Mhm. I do agree with it when you put it that way.
Yeah. But and that's the beauty about this article that I found. Like I just like that there were so many different perspectives. Like you don't have to agree with everything that every
Mhm.
woman is saying, but they brought in a ton of ideas that are really interesting and good to think about.
And a lot of things that, like, we've touched on too. So it's
Mhm.
interesting to circle back to that.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, everything we've been saying, it's true." So yeah, that was that one. I thought that was interesting.
Next, all my life experience tells me that women do make a difference. In the trade union movement, women leaders have exposed the scandal of sexual harassment, campaigned for equal pay, and made caring responsibilities a workplace bargaining issue. As a result, the lives of millions of women and men have changed for the better.
I like that one because it's true. We look at these movements, especially like at the forefront of my mind is like the Me Too movement. That was women standing up against,
Right.
sexual harassment in the workplace specifically to start. Um, and so I agree. I think there would be more of that. I think it would be made a safer place for men because women talk a lot about like mental health in men.
Hmm.
And we've talked about that on our podcast, like, and so I think it would be made a safer place for men to like feel more emotional because women in power would be more empathetic to that instead of just so like, this is business, this is how we do it.
Right.
That's what I
And
think.
it is that way a lot of times.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the next one. First of all, free tampons, legal abortion everywhere, and actual jail sentences given to 100% of rapists instead of the 5% we see today. And hopefully, with the right head woman in charge, there would be some kind of limit to how much a man was allowed to interrupt and mansplain. I
She's
just thought
speaking
that
a
was
little
funny.
more on our level.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. But it's true. I think that obviously free tampons, legal abortion, those are good things.
Obviously. And like she definitely brings up a point about our legal system and the
Mhm.
justice system that is just horrible
Mhm.
and really needs reformation. But I agree with her.
I do too, and it is interesting because like yeah, what is the reason? I know that there are reasons, whatever. But like what's the reason for no legal abortion? What's the reason for no free tampons? Like there's always an argument for the other side, but like the reality is that it's a majority of men in charge in America, and there's all these like things that women aren't able to access. But like you can get Viagra for free, like men,
Hmm.
and you can't get
And it's
tampons.
very accessible.
Yeah, and you can't get tampons for free. Like you got to pay 25 cents. I'm sorry. If you're in the bathroom and they have those little dispensers and you got to pay 25 cents, who carries coins anymore?
No.
No, it's not how it works. So, yeah, I like that one because it's like it's funny the way she says it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, there's all these things that could be happening to help women that are actually just easy fixes, but because it's a majority of men in charge, it's not happening because they don't
Right.
see it as a priority.
Right. And they also were like, well, taxes would go up. I
Mhm.
don't care. This
Mhm.
is a necessity.
Yeah, exactly. I if it means that like all women have access in, let's say, the county that we live in, to menstrual products, and there's like
Free.
stuff for free like in the bathroom, homeless women have access because we live in a city, like there's a lot. If everyone had access, I would pay more taxes
I
because
would
it's not like
too.
it's going to go up that much.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah. I thought that was interesting.
I believe that women make more pragmatic decisions and are forward thinking. They ensure sustainability for future generations. Women at the table will invest heavily in better education, affordable healthcare, and access to clean water. Women's empowerment will produce collateral benefits: LGBTQ rights, Indigenous peoples' rights, children's rights, religious freedom. Family friendly policies will be formulated to enable both parents to enjoy the privileges of parenting. Unfair stereotypes and standards imposed upon men to ensure they fit into an iron scaffold of masculinity will be lifted. My first thought that came to this, because she's talking about some very important topics that need more attention
Hmm.
in America and also worldwide, I feel like, in
Yeah.
many countries. But the thing that came to my mind was how on the ballot this year was to legalize shrooms. I'm like, why is that more important
Yeah.
than period leave
Hmm.
or tampon tax or
Hmm.
affordable health care? Like these
Yeah.
very important issues that like is showing our priorities in society, and it's just so wrong.
Hmm. Yeah, I also like going back to the last line, like she said, like shattering like toxic masculinity.
Mhm.
Um, we were just talking about this, but like, yeah, I do believe it would be made a more safe place for men because they would, I think that women would make it easier for men to express how they feel and just make it more normalized to actually show emotion
Mhm.
and it not just be so business all the time. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, we need to straighten our priorities.
We really do. Well, I think it's interesting to think about what it would be like if, like, we were in charge, for example,
Mhm.
because I do think a lot would change, and I think it would be a safer place. I think decisions would be made quicker and more rationally,
Mhm.
and it would take into account, like, actual constituents instead of these lawmakers just deciding what they want
Mhm.
and for their party.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be perfect, it never would be, the world there's always gonna be issues, but I do think it would look a lot different in the world.
It would look different for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, and I think it is fun to think about, unfortunately, that's not the way the world is, but we will get there, you guys. Talking about manifestation, the world is gonna be run by a majority of women, if or e at least equal amounts of men and women, because that's what we wanna see instead of majority
We just
men.
want more
Yes, we want
representation.
more representation and we're going to get it. It's going to happen. But yeah, just like a really interesting thing to think about. Um, as always, we like post reels and stuff on Instagram and TikTok. So comment what you think would happen if women were in charge, because it's fun to see.
Yeah, what would you do?
Would you fly on a private plane? Yeah, so as always, share with a friend, follow us on Instagram at Real Talk About Feminism Pod. All links are going to be down in the show notes, so you can find us through those links, and we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.